On this episode of Late Night Nate, we're going to go and cam my Fairmont Ghia. Alright guys, so today we're going to be working on this thing. Alright, so this thing's pretty much all stock really. It does have pacemaker 4499 headers, so they're just the tri-wire headers. I've had the head reconditioned probably like 4 years ago, at a rough guess. Wasn't anything major, just basically freshen up. So had valve springs upgraded from memory. I think it's a Manly spring, a single spring with an inner dampener. I think from memory they're around 100 pound seat pressure. Good enough for most of your high lift cam upgrades and that sort of thing. Alright, so this is the camshaft I'm going to be running. It's a billet camshaft, so that's the profile number on there. I'm not so sure if you can make that out, but it's the 2221514. So yeah, so that's the Crow stage 4 they call it. And yeah, that's what we're going to be chucking into my EL, and then we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I just wanted to give it a bit of a nice note at idle. Eventually I'm going to do a high stall on this, probably going to pull the head at some stage and get it ported, possibly rebuild the bottom end, go for a little bit higher compression. Ideally for something like that, with that cam, I'd want to be running like at least mid 10 to 1 compression. Basically I think factory E series is around 9.3 or something like that, so that's street friendly compression. If you're running 10 and a half, 11 to 1 compression, 98 octane, that cam, you get your supporting mods, your valve springs, heads ported, that sort of thing, it'd probably be a good package. So yeah, that's what I'm working towards. Make it like a nice streeter car. I'm not here for all-out power. It's a fucking 4-speed auto, so it's never going to be a rocket. So yeah, so we'll chuck this cam in. We'll see how it goes. I'll see if I've got a spare J3 chip laying around somewhere, because I'm pretty sure I might have 1 or 2 laying around. But yeah, no doubt it's definitely going to idle rich as shit if I try and just run it off the stock computer. So if you're out there running one of these on a stock computer and you say, oh, it runs mint, full of shit, man, like it's dumping stupid amounts of fuel in at idle, get it tuned properly and then you'll see how much nicer it is. So yeah, that's enough talking from me, so let's get into it. Alright, so this is basically what we're up to now. So I've just taken all the little bits and pieces off to get the rocker cover off. And this is what we're looking at right now. So this is all the rocker gear. All of this has all got to come off. So we've got 28 little 10mm bolts. All needs to come out just to get the rocker gear off. Still got to take the cam bolt out, obviously. Zip tie this chain to the sprocket so it doesn't jump a tooth when we pop it off the cam. I'm going to have to take the power steering pump out. I'm going to have to take that bracket out just so I can get to the timing chain tensioner under there. We're going to need to release the tension on the chain so that it doesn't spring forward and sort of put too much tension on the chain. So if you release it, it slackens off the chain a bit, and you've got a bit more room to maneuver the sprocket out of the way with the chain and all that. But yeah, so everything looks pretty nice and tidy under there. We'll get all of these other things out of the way and then swap this cam out. Alright, so partway through the job at the moment. Just going to do a little bit of a flip around so I can show you guys the timing chain tensioner. So that's the tensioner bolt right there. So this whole thing needs to come out, and then we can release the tension on this chain, loosen off all these bolts that hold the rocker gear down, loosen this cam sprocket bolt, and then yeah, should be able to move that out of the way. Once the rocker gear's out of the way, the cam will be able to come out, and then yeah, I'll drop the other one in. Alright guys, bit of an interesting discovery when I was pulling this rocker gear off. Yeah, have a look at this shit. So, a normal lifter, I'll just pop this one out. Should look like that, right? Okay, that's a good looking lifter. This, however, does not look right. There's like a little piece, I don't know if you can see that there. It's just floating around. So this lifter is completely dead. Holy crap. That is the first time I've ever seen that before. The little swivel tip on it is just completely failed. Wow, that is unbelievable. Hopefully it hasn't damaged the... Oh no. We're all good. We're all good. So, yeah, that lifter has definitely seen better days. Too much limiter, maybe. Oh my god, terrible. Valve tip still looks okay, so that's not too bad. But yeah, that's less than ideal to be seeing something like that. Hopefully the rest of them are still somewhat okay. Yeah, so these are still the original lifters that have done sort of coming up on 200,000 Ks. So probably a good time to change the cam, I guess. It's one of those things, if I didn't go ahead with changing the cam right now, probably would have never known until it failed majorly. So yeah, all good. Alright, so rocker gear's off, cam's out. Everything looks pretty reasonable. There is a little bit of scoring in the cam journals, which is pretty bloody common, to be honest. I usually just try and polish that up with a bit of very fine sandpaper, just to try and smooth it out a bit. That's the only problem when you've got a steel camshaft running in a aluminium journal. It's the stupidest idea of all time, but you know, it is what it is. yeah, so we'll get those polished up. I'll drop the new cam in, and then yeah, get these lifters sorted out and put back into the rocker area assembly, and bolt it all back down. Alright, so we've cleaned up the cam journals as best we can. Used a bit of 800 grit and then some 1500, followed by some 2500 just to try and smooth it out a bit. But we've got most of the ridges polished out, so they're all nice and smooth. Before the cam goes in, good time to just squirt a bit of oil in the journals. And then, yeah, so yeah, we'll drop the cam in now, get the sprocket mounted up, and then bolt the rocker gear back down. So this is the actual spring-loaded tensioner assembly right here. So it's got like a little scroll with these little notches, which you can probably see there. So the idea is that this slips into here. So you've got this little spigot that pops into the end of the spring. The spring locates into the end of this little locking piece. Literally just all goes inside like that. So what you want to do is push it together, and before I do this I'll just show you the inside's got like a little locating pin, and this is what locks into the little notches when you completely assemble it together. So basically push it together and rotate at the same time, and you'll feel it sort of lock into a few notches. So it's much easier when it's not covered in oil. A little bit slippery at the moment, but literally that's the tensioner in its fully closed position, and that's how this gets inserted into the side of the timing case. I'm just going to go through and disassemble this thing here, because this is the end piece that retains the tensioner assembly into the timing case. I'll pull all of that apart now, and then that'll be ready to go back into the timing case when we're ready to put tension back on the chain. Alright, so this piece here, this is the retainer for the tensioner assembly. So this is the piece that extends out of the timing case. You've got a 14mm hex on this retaining bolt. So this retaining bolt here is the very last piece of the puzzle. Once this goes in and you tighten this up, the entire assembly sort of nips itself up a bit more. So yeah, if it's anything like what I just had, where the entire thing came out in one piece, which majority of the time it does, I think I've only ever had it once where this was actually sort of still stuck in the timing case. Every other time it's always come out together, sort of thing. So what I tend to do is try and lock the bottom section of the retainer in some soft jaws in the vise, and then I put vice grips on the outer flange of this thing, and yeah, it's usually tight as shit. So basically that's the piece there that you want to be clamping on. So essentially what you've got here is the retainer housing. Okay, so you have this little filter that sort of slips into the end of this retainer. So yeah, basically this thing here has a little pinhole, which is, where am I? Right there. So that pinhole there, or that hole, is what lets oil through. So pretty much this little filter here just makes sure that the oil coming through is filtered, I guess. So yeah, usually clean this all down. You take your tensioner assembly, it goes that way around inside the timing case. So that goes in. Before I forget, there is a little, from memory, a 3mm hex on the end of this piece here. So that one there goes into the side of the timing case, that way around, obviously. Then you would put this in, screw it all the way into the timing case. It has two, I think, 5mm holes from memory. Generally, that's what you would use to tighten it. As long as you can get that to seat up against the timing case, that's virtually all you really need, to be honest. You can use 2 drill bits that locate into there nicely, and then just put a screwdriver through the 2 drill bits and use that as a sort of leveraging thing. Tighten it as much as you can, and then once that's in place, you insert the Allen key through the hole in the end of this into the little hex on the end of the tensioner. What you need is a little bit of tube. So in this case, I think it's probably like 3 to 5mm roughly sticking out of the end once this is all the way in. What that allows is when you push this in and it bottoms up against the tensioner, you're using the tube to put pressure on the end of the tensioner to spring it away from the notches that it's locked into, and then the Allen key just rotates. I can't remember which way it needs to rotate. I think it's anti-clockwise, but you'll find out when you put it in there, because as soon as you put the Allen key into this, you'll feel it's just basically floating in there. As soon as you unlock it, it springs open, the tension's there, and you can feel the tension on the chain as well. So that's the tool that I usually use. It's just a bit of, I think it was a pen at one stage. I've just cut the pen into pieces and just cut a little section, and then yeah, that's basically what you do there. After that, tension has been unlocked. This little filter here goes into the end of this piece, so it just pops into there, and then finally this little locking bolt just goes back into there. And then yeah, basically tighten that up. I tend to put a little bit of sort of like RTV type stuff on this bolt just so it doesn't leak. It does have an O-ring on there, but I usually put that on there anyway. I also put a little bit of it around where this O-ring is, or there's some sort of seal at least on the end of this retainer. So I usually put a little bit on both of those just to ensure there's no leaks. And then yeah, basically once you tighten this up, it'll get to a point where it sort of locks into this, and then it will rotate that as well, just to nip it up a little bit more. And then yeah, that's basically it in terms of the timing chain tensioner being reinstalled. Basically just going through and assembling the rocker gear at the moment. So I've already done the exhaust side, just going through and doing the intake side at the moment. There's a little spacer or shim that goes in the very end of the rocker arm bore, which looks like that. So these need to go in with the 3 little slots facing down towards the lifter. Go into there. Usually just use something just to push it all the way to the bottom. You should be sort of seeing that shim sit like that. And then it's a case of just popping the lifter into there. So basically do that for all of the rocker arms. Handy trick that a lot of guys use is putting some masking tape or some sort of tape around the rocker arm to sort of secure the lifter into the bore. That way once you lift it all up and go to put it back on the motor, the lifters don't just fall straight out. So yeah, we'll go through and do that, and then we'll go get this rocker gear bolted on. Hopefully it doesn't rain. Alright guys, we're on day 3 I think now of doing the cam swap. Just trying to find time to work on it and whatnot. So just finished work. Got the rocker gear more or less bolted up last night. I haven't torqued all the bolts down yet, but that's what we're going to do right now. Then I'll tighten up the cam bolt, put the tensioner back in. Then it's basically just put all the other stuff back on, rocker cover and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, getting pretty close now. Yeah, today's actually not too bad. So yeah, make use of the good weather for a change, and get the rest of this rocker gear bolted up, and yeah, get the cam bolt tightened up, get the tensioner put back in. Yeah, basically put everything back together now. Okay, so when tightening these rocker gear bolts up, usually start from the middle, so start from these ones and then basically just work your way around sort of thing until you tighten them from the center outwards. Didn't really see this much in the time lapse, but when you're bolting these down, you sort of just got to make sure that the rocker arms are sort of holding the lifters completely, like the lifters haven't popped out of the arms or anything like that, because it does happen. At the moment you'll see that the rocker arms have a little bit of movement. That's actually the lifters that are not primed at the moment, so they've got oil in them, but they're not actually primed to be solid. So what will happen is once the motor starts, it'll be fairly rattly initially, but hopefully within a couple of minutes at least, it should sort of quieten down once the lifters pump up with oil and take up the clearances. Okay, in terms of the tensioner assembly, so obviously like we were talking about before, this one goes in first. So that's the side of the timing case down there, that little hole wants to go in with the two little, I don't know what the hell you call those, but that side needs to be going in. Side with the little hex piece faces out, so just pop it in like that. It should just sort of go through. So at the moment, so a little bit hard to see, but the chain's got no tension on it right now, so pop that in there. Next up goes this piece, so we'll put a little bit of RTV on that. It's probably not needed, but I usually do that anyway. And that basically goes straight into this part here. So screw that in by hand. Take that rag away. Screw that in by hand until you sort of bottom it out. Something like that. Okay, so like I was saying, on the end of it you've got two little holes. It's a little bit hard to see right there, but yeah, got two holes on the end of it there. So generally what you can do, try normal long nose pliers. If that doesn't work, then the two drill method is what I usually use. Okay, so it's a little bit hard to record and tighten that at the same time, so I've just tightened that up. What we need to do now is go back to using that 3mm Allen key and a little bit of tube. So like I was saying earlier, pop that into the end of the tube. So Allen key in the end of the tube like that. What you want to do is put that into the hole. And you're basically just trying to locate the Allen key into the end of the tensioner. What you want to do is push in and just rotate it clockwise, I think. No, anti-clockwise. So you should feel it sort of unravel. So just heard it pop out there. And you usually just keep going until it sort of stops. And now, we have tension on the chain now. So that's released the tensioner. Well, it's unlocked the tensioner now, so it's in the tension position. So at the moment what you're seeing there, a little deflection on the chain, that's just the spring pushing back into the tensioner. But yeah, that's basically ready to go. Alright, so as I was saying, put the filter in, and then we're going to put the retainer bolt through the filter and then screw that in. And then yeah, 14mm spanner, tighten that up, and then yeah, that's pretty much the tensioner assembly done. Alright guys, back again. I think this is like day 5 now. Been taking my sweet time with it, mainly because I'm just doing it after work and whatnot. So bolted everything up last night. Didn't bother starting it because it was like 10 o'clock or some shit, so I thought fuck, I'll leave it all till today. To be honest, I've run cams similar and they've just been way too rich to idle, so we'll see what it does. I'll be shocked if it runs anywhere near decent straight off the key. So yeah, let's go get this girl started. Guys, so that's the cam install done. Like I was saying earlier, I wasn't expecting it to run straight off the key. Obviously it starts, it won't run by itself. I'm basically holding the throttle open just to keep the revs up, and I think that's what a lot of guys are doing, basically just turning the idle screw in just so it idles higher, and that seems to keep it alive. But yeah, you can't run it like that, man. It runs like a bag of shit. So yeah, so coming up next will obviously be a J3 chip from TI Performance. I've actually got a couple of spare chips, so some spare chips, the programmer. Basically I did a few DIY tunes back in the day. In saying that, I've got my sister's EL XR6 that we put a Crow stage 3 into, which is the 2222549 profile from memory. I think that's what it is, which is basically the Crow stage 3. That had very similar sort of idle issues when we fitted that up. It wouldn't idle straight off the bat. We had to cut a hell of a lot of fuel out, and we also had to play around with the timing just to get it to idle steady, otherwise it was just hunting constantly. So I'm actually pretty tempted to just take the chip out of that and chuck it straight into here. So to end this video, I might actually just do that and see if it works. It might have the changes needed to get it to just idle sort of things. So I'll give that a jam, because worst case I could sort of pull the tune off that chip, bring that into Tuner Pro, and then make some fine adjustments off that. So we'll end this video on that, because it's starting to get a little bit long now. So yeah, hopefully in the next video we'll do some tuning using Tuner Pro and the TI Performance J3 chip, and yeah, we'll see if we can take this thing out on the road and see how it drives and that sort of thing. But yeah, again, thanks for watching. Hopefully there's something that you guys might have picked up in that might be helpful if you're doing your own cam swaps in your E-Series or AUs for that matter. Yeah, hopefully the next video will be out in the next week or so, and then yeah, we'll pick up from where we left off on here. So yeah, thanks again for watching, guys. Until next time, peace. Okay, gonna steal the J3 chip out of this car. Oh, look at that, still ready to go. There we go. Probably the most annoying part is trying to clip one of these things back in, but yeah, that's in. We'll give this a go and hope for the best. Like I was saying, if it seems to run okay, I might just use this tune, make some fine adjustments to suit this car, and then yeah, that'll be my new tune until I get it onto a dyno and do it properly. So so yeah, let's turn the key and see what happens. Not quite. So I think it's still a little bit too rich. You can hear it popping and all sorts, so it's still dumping a hell of a lot of fuel in there. Just holding the throttle open a little bit right now just to keep it steady, but yeah, it's definitely way too rich. Idle needs to come up a little bit as well, I think. Shout out to this umbrella as well. This is basically keeping my bonnet open all the time. Alright, so it runs now.